Good morning. Most of you know I am a Buddhist, which raises the question, what the heck is a Buddhist doing here at Unity? Well, first of all, I love the music. I think Jack and Oriana are wonderful. Can we have another round of applause for Jack and Oriana? That brings me out every Sunday. Some of the songs they've been singing in recent weeks really have meant a lot to me. There's one line from a song, "Every thought becomes a prayer." That's certainly in keeping with Buddhist philosophy. "Love is my decision. We come together in the name of love." And there's even that one song where you turn to your neighbor and say, "Namaste, I bow to you." Pure Buddhism. And there's a song that says, I'm at peace, I'm one with the Spirit. And the other day they sang Imagine to the John Lennon song. And it has the line, "Imagine no religion, I wonder if you can, no one to kill or die for, a fellowship of man and of women." I'm sure John Lennon would sing today if he were still with us. And another thing I like about Unity is that every Sunday morning the service assistant reaffirms that there's no one path to God, not even our own. And wherever you are in your spiritual path, you're welcome here. That makes me feel welcome here. We also declare that God is love and only love. That fits my impression. It sure beats the guy in the sky I grew up with in a conservative Lutheran Sunday school with hellfire and damnation and some old white guy with a white beard shooting down thunderbolts. That impression of God never worked for me. But God is love and only love. That does work for me. Then after that service assistant, there's always a meditation, like the one I led a few minutes ago. And meditation is the essence of Buddhism. So that also makes me feel very welcome here. And every person who leads the meditation has a slightly different version of it. Another thing I love about Unity is the 3 basic missions of Unity on Cape Cod. And we even have them on a slide, I think. Creating love, celebrating community, transforming lives. Those 3 unities, what's there not to love about those goals? Love is something to be celebrated. Community is something to be created, and lives are to be transformed. I have felt my life transformed since coming here to Unity. I also relate to the Unity philosophy from the Unity School of Christianity. And we don't go into these often enough here, I think. This comes from the headquarters. God is all there is and present everywhere. This is a force of love and wisdom that underlies all of existence. Again, that's a better alternative to the guy in the sky. Now, the Buddha did not address the existence of God. He left open various interpretations of God. The Buddha said, "I teach only suffering and the relief of suffering." Number 2, human beings are divine at their core and therefore all inherently good. I find that much preferable to the churches that teach that we're all inherently sinful. I think we're all born good. I believe in the inherent goodness of all beings. The Buddha taught that we all have the potential to awaken. We all have the Buddha nature or bodhicitta. Number 3 is thoughts have creative power to determine events and attract experiences. We are what we think. I think our thoughts are powerful. Like that song says, every thought becomes a prayer. Number 4, prayer and meditation keep us aligned with the one great power in the universe. Buddhists believe that prayer and meditation are very powerful, and meditation keeps us aligned with the universe. Through meditation, we can affect the world and our relationship to it. And then finally, number 5 is, it is not enough to understand spiritual teachings. We must live the truth we know. The Buddha taught that our actions are our only possessions. This is part of the 5 remembrances. And I don't have them up on the board, but I'm going to read them for you. These are 5 remembrances that Buddhists try to repeat every day. 1, I'm of the nature to grow old. There's no way to escape growing old. 2, I'm of the nature to have ill health. There's no way to escape ill health. 3, I'm of the nature to die. There's no way to escape death. 4, all that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change. There's no way to escape being separated from them. These are so definitely true. And the 5th noble truth is that, the 5th, the remembrance is, my actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequence of my actions. My actions are the ground upon which I stand, which is the same as we must live the truth we know. There's really no contradiction between Buddhist principles and unity principles. The most basic Buddhist teaching are the 4 noble truths, that there is suffering in life. There's a cause of suffering, which is our craving and desire. There's an end to suffering, which is letting go of our craving and desire. And there's a path that lends the end of suffering, the Noble Eightfold Path. Wise view. That's a view that understands that everything is impermanent and we are all one. Wise intention, the intention to do good in the world, not to do harm. Wise speech, to tell the truth and say words that are supportive and helpful. Wise action. And wise action is usually described in terms of the 5 precepts to avoid killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and misuse of drugs and alcohol. Wise vocation, doing a job that's helpful to the world, not harmful. Wise effort, and that's usually described as appropriate effort, not extreme effort. Wise mindfulness and wise concentration equal meditation. And if you're interested in meditation, besides what we do here at Unity, please feel free to join the Cape Sangha every Sunday at 4:30, where we do 2 20-minute meditations. Now, when I was trying to figure out how to describe my attraction to unity, I realized that I wrote a chapter about it in my book, Becoming Peacemaker. And I'd like to, with your indulgence, read that chapter today. It's very short. Prayer is not a traditional part of Buddhist practice, but I have seen the power of prayer. And traditionally, Buddhists do not observe Easter, but I do. Thich Nhat Hanh says Jesus and the Buddha are brothers, and I've clearly seen that myself. On Easter Sunday in 2008, I walked into Unity Church of the Light in Hyannis, Massachusetts. That was the former name of this spiritual center. And there are a few people here today who were here in 2008. On Easter Sunday in 2008, I walked into Unity Church of the Light in Hyannis, Massachusetts with my son Brandon. One of my closest friends, the Reverend Steve Cordry, was the minister. When Brandon and I walked in, I saw that Steve's 23-year-old son, Michael Cordry, was sitting in the front row. He was only a couple years younger than Brandon. Michael had been a student in my college journalism class 4 or 5 years earlier, back when he was a heroin addict and an armed robber. It was through my trying to help him that I met his father, Steve. When I saw Michael, I waved and grinned at him. He held his hand over his heart and then reached out toward me. Early in the service, there's a time when people greet you, and Michael wasn't really sitting all that close to me, but I tried to head his way and saw that he was trying to get to me. The church was packed. He got to me and gave me a bear hug and told me he loved me. I told him I loved him too. 5 years earlier, back when Michael took my journalism class, I could tell he was an exceptionally bright student and a very talented writer. I could also tell he was deeply troubled. I made it clear that I wanted to help him any way I could. About halfway through the semester, I got close enough to him that he confided in me. He said he was addicted to heroin and couldn't get off. I mentioned counselors and treatment centers, and I promised I would do everything I could to help him. He tried to get help, but nothing seemed to work. Eventually, Michael disappeared. I tried his cell phone, but there was no number, no answer. I got his home number and gave it a try. A man answered, and I explained that I was Michael's journalism professor and that I wanted to know if there was anything I could do to help him. The man said no and got off the phone very quickly. Well, I figured I'd done what I could. A few days later, the same man called me back and apologized for being so abrupt. It was Steve Cordry. He introduced himself as Michael's father. He explained that when he called, he had no idea who I was, and he did not want to discuss his son's very serious personal problems with some stranger. He said he had talked to Michael, who told him about me. He said Michael described me as a spiritual person, and Steve asked if we could meet for lunch. He said perhaps I could give him some spiritual advice. We met a few days later at a small coffee shop, and he asked me about my spiritual tradition and philosophy. I talked about how Buddhists believe we're all one. We call it non-dualistic thinking. There's no us and them, no me and you, no self and others, but only one universal spirit that encompasses us all. Because we're all one, harming others is harmful to ourselves, and helping others is helping ourselves. I'd already droned on about spiritual matters for quite some time before I even asked him what he did for a living. I'm a minister, he said. Oops. I felt foolish giving spiritual advice to a minister, but my embarrassment quickly faded away as Steve and I began a long-term Christian-Buddhist interfaith dialogue. We talked about other things we had in common, like being fathers of adult sons, being motorcycle riders, being writers, and being baby boomers who had switched careers in midlife. Steve told me about how he had bailed out Michael again and again throughout a very troubled adolescence. This time, however, he knew he couldn't bail him out again. It was time for tough love. He managed to make it clear that Michael had to face the consequences of his actions, which included trying to hold up drugstores to get opiates. Fortunately, Michael got into a residential treatment program called Teen Challenge. It was the same program that had been featured in a popular film called The Cross and the Switchblade. It is based on very conservative, fundamental type Christianity, which is not at all like the Unity School of Christianity in which Steve was confirmed. Nevertheless, Steve and I believe that if it helped save Michael's life, then God bless it. Michael went through the 18-month program at Teen Challenge and then stayed on at the program, working in the office and helping others. I wrote a letter to a judge urging him to allow Michael to serve his time at Teen Challenge rather than in jail. Eventually, the judge and probation officers handling Michael's criminal case agreed to let him do that. I'd seen him a few times when he was granted supervised home visits, and I could see he was transformed. But nothing was as dramatic as that Easter Sunday at his father's church. As the service began, the band, yes, this church had a 4-piece rock band, played Morning Has Risen, which was beautiful. Steve started his lesson talking about how some consider resurrection based on a literal fact, and some consider it a metaphor or allegory. What did he believe? He shrugged his shoulders. Then he talked about the kind of resurrection we can all experience in our lives when we're trapped in a black hole of depression, despair, and self-doubt. He talked about rising from the ashes of such terrible times to find joy and redemption and find a new life, and how that was as much a miracle as rising from the dead. Then Steve, he said, had never heard of a more dramatic example than that of his own son, Michael. I was already crying when Michael got up to speak. He was immaculately groomed and wearing a crisp black suit, white shirt and tie. His black shoes were perfectly polished. It was a different picture from the tough rebel in my journalism class. He got up and he said, "Wow." He remembered when his dad was preaching at Unity and there were only 10 or 15 people and meeting wherever they could rent space. Now there were more than 100 people and the church had its own building. Of course, he said, he was different too. I was a helpless heroin addict, crouched in the corner of a dirty jail cell, facing a dozen felony charges, including armed robbery in 2 counties. He said hardly anybody believed he had any future, but his father did. He quickly told the story of finding his way through Teen Challenge and their God-based program. The judge gave him 3 months probation, which is unheard of for such serious charges. Now he said he was studying to become a minister himself. He was engaged to a wonderful woman, and he was now able to help others. He talked about how he was working in a storefront ministry that was part of the ghetto in Lynn, Massachusetts, witnessing homeless people, drug addicts, and people with serious mental illnesses. He told about talking to one homeless woman, Rita, and asking her about her life and asking if he could do anything to help her. He said she looked at amazement and said no one had ever asked her that in years. He said he could see a transformation in her face. He started to choke up when he told the story about helping her. I looked around and everyone in the whole church was crying. He concluded by thanking his father. The whole congregation as one leapt to feet in a long, heartfelt standing ovation. It was an amazing opening, an outpouring of respect, love, gratitude, and admiration. Then the band sang George Harrison's My Sweet Lord. My sweet Lord, I really want to see you, really want to be with you, really want to see you, Lord, but it takes so long, my Lord. My sweet Lord, I really want to know you, really want to go with you, really want to show you, Lord, that it won't take long, my Lord. Hallelujah. It was an Easter Sunday of resurrection, reformation, and rebirth. Was it Christian or was it Buddhist? When the band played My Sweet Lord, I could have sworn I heard Jesus and the Buddha singing along with Michael and Brandon and their fathers. Thank you.